Hello and welcome to another episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy. I'm Dave G, and joining me tonight on the show we have...
Hello everybody, my name's Kyle.
And tonight we're taking a look at the brand new Blumhouse horror M3GAN that's been out for a little while in the States and has just come out here in Australia as well. And this is one of those movies that I know a lot of Australian horror fans are really looking forward to because it's been getting great raps in America. It's from director Jared Johnson, and it's an interesting story. It basically revolves around this woman, Gemma, played by Alison Williams, who is a robotics engineer at a toy company. And this toy company has been manufacturing some really successful toys, but she's been working on this model of a toy called M3GAN, which has a couple of people involved with playing the character. First of all, Amy Donald does the actual moving of this character, and Jenna Davis does the voice. Now, she brings this M3GAN doll home when her own niece, Katie Violet McGrath, ends up becoming her adopted daughter after an accident that kills Gemma's sister and her brother-in-law. But things aren't as they seem. While M3GAN seems to be a good choice for Katie in the first place, there soon starts to be some issues, which becomes a little bit of a problem because Gemma's boss, David, Ronnie Chieng, has basically fallen in love with this doll and wants it to be the next big toy that the company makes. Now, mate, we've seen a lot of scary kid films, and we've seen a few films about AIs acting up over the years as well, including The Terminator. What were your thoughts on M3GAN, and did it live up to all that hype that we got from America?
For me, not entirely. I think we've seen a whole lot of psycho doll movies, and this one coming with a story co-created by James Wan. That makes about the fourth or fifth creepy doll movie that he's been involved with.
Yeah.
I think for me, I think I've seen a lot of the things that were done here. I think I've seen some of them done better, or just the fact that I've seen them done before.
Yeah.
Means that I was a little bit let down by just that the film definitely had a lack of... It didn't really try to be original or very creative with its concept. It was very paint by numbers. It's very much it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is exactly what you expect to get. The movie it plays out exactly as you expect it to, and in that way, I was kind of disappointed because it's just, I've seen this kind of done before, and I was a little bit let down, as well as the fact that the movie quite clearly is supposed to be. It really does feel like a movie that's been hobbled for a lower rating for a wider audience.
Yeah.
But there's obviously going to be an extended version of this coming out soon, and it's just kind of I hate to see movies that are obviously cut down like that, just so they can make more money at the box office. But yeah, so a little bit disappointed for me. I thought there were some interesting ideas in it, but what did you think of it, David?
Yeah, I was really surprised when they first started to market this film, and they were talking about the fact that it's the first time that this kind of thing with AIs has been explored, because my mind just instantly went to Ex Machina, because that's written by one of my favourite screenwriters, Alex Garland. But as far as I'm concerned, the investigations of AIs in movies goes right back to almost the 60s. There's sci-fi movies in the 60s where robots went crazy and did things, and you've also got the Terminator films, and there's so many movies that have come out over the years. So I was kind of surprised when they first started to talk about this film and talk about it being a film that was breaking new grounds, because even from the trailer, my first thought when I watched the trailer was that it was a female version of The Boy, which came out a few years ago, and there was also traces of Orphan in there, which I know is very different because Orphan was about a real person and not a doll. But it didn't feel to me like it was breaking new ground, yet that's what they were saying when they were talking about the film. So, yeah, it just came as a little bit of a surprise for me that that's something that they were talking about. But to be honest, I haven't been a big fan also of James Wan's work since he's kind of split with Leigh Whannell. I felt like I'm trying to think of the name, and I cannot think of the name of it. It was James Wan's film that came out when we were in lockdown, and I saw it at the drive-in. And I was really disappointed. Being someone who is normally a fan of Blumhouse horror and has been a big fan of Leigh Whannell and James Wan over the years, I was really disappointed in the film.
Was that one Malignant?
That's right, yeah, Malignant.
Yeah.
I was really disappointed in that film, which is interesting because I think Leigh Whannell's films have been really good since the split, but James Wan's have been a little bit disappointing. So, but yeah, with M3GAN, for me it was a passable film. I didn't come out of it hating it or anything like that, but I felt like I'd seen most of the stuff before, and I found a lot of plot holes in this film too, I've got to admit.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that about Leigh Whannell, because something I actually think is that I really wish this movie was written by Leigh Whannell.
Yeah.
Because like we've seen after his like take on artificial intelligence with the movie Upgrade.
Yes, yeah.
But also his interesting twist on The Invisible Man. That could have just been a standard horror film, but he made it like a movie about an abusive relationship.
Yeah. And
he did like really Leigh Whannell does really interesting things with the storylines in his movies that kind of, he knows. I remember we saw him talking about The Invisible Man, and he was telling this story about how, like, when he sees a horror movie, like he's seen so many horror movies that he's seen all this stuff before. He assumes that the audience is like him, and they've seen all this stuff before, so he doesn't want to he wants to give them something new and give them something that they wouldn't expect to see. And that's why I think, like, with this movie, he would have, like, there's some interesting things in this, such as Gemma's culpability at her, like, that she is the one that created this M3GAN doll, and that she actually kind of, in being a bad foster parent for Katie, she's actually responsible for a lot of the things that happen in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think that in a movie written by Leigh Whannell, he would have explored that. Whereas in this movie, the movie as it is now, it's very much just whatever. Just forget about it, because the movie doesn't take itself seriously enough to even spend any time on it at all. So I think there were a lot of interesting things that could have been done with this movie that would have made it stand out from other Psycho Doll films, but they didn't. And I mean, personally, I really enjoyed I feel like I'm in the minority here, but I really enjoyed the Child's Play remake.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and this feels so much like that. It's exactly the same kind of thing with another a child's doll that has an AI, and the doll develops kind of an unhealthy relationship with the kid, and in trying to protect it, it actually starts hurting. In trying to protect the kid, it starts to hurt people, and it's just. Like, yeah, there was interesting things that could have been done with this movie, but a lot of it I've already seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my thoughts too. And when the film did get interesting was actually when it did go into those moments when Gemma is feeling like she's a bad parent. Like, there's a brilliant scene in this where, like, Katie walks into the house and Gemma says that she can't have one of the toys that's on the wall because it's a collectible item, and then a couple of days later there's a welfare worker who comes to make sure that Katie's fitting into the home, and Gemma relents while the worker is there and says, oh no, she can have that toy if she wants, and you see the pain on Gemma's face as Katie's opening it, but that to me was the more powerful moments in this film, because like you said, a lot of the stuff with M3GAN felt more like child's play, stuff that I had seen before. But whereas I think, like you said, with Leigh Whannell and The Invisible Man, that went into what it's like being in an abusive relationship from a woman's point of view. I think this film would have worked really well if they'd kept that to the point where it was like, Gemma thinks she's a bad parent. Like, there's times in this movie where you almost get the feeling that Gemma doesn't want Katie. Like, this has been forced upon her, in a sense. And I thought that would have made a really, really powerful film. But those scenes were few and far between. And I really think that the finale of this film lets it down because there's plot holes galore there. I'm trying to say this without spoilers. There's people that, for M3GAN to survive and to get out into the open world, she needs to kill, but she doesn't kill those people, and the people that she kills, like, from my point of view, are the people that would have allowed her out into the world, and her kind out into the world. So it kind of feels like, and I don't know whether they're trying to make the point that she's not intelligent enough to work that out, but it feels like she kills the wrong people and lets the wrong people live. Like, it's a weird kind of thing to have in a horror film, but it happens. And for me, that finale let down a lot of what had been good for the rest of the film.
Yeah, like, it could have... The way that they treat M3GAN in the movie, it really is... She's just a means to an end. It really just... It becomes a very schlocky horror film kind of thing where you're not supposed to question anything. Like, even just how much we're questioning it is... Like, we're going against kind of, I guess, what the filmmaker's intent is.
Yeah. But
that's the problem, because I think that they could have done something really interesting with this instead of just having it be a movie that it's very camp in it doesn't take itself too seriously, and there's some parts in the movie where just how ridiculous what you're looking at. You're looking at a doll being attacked by a dog or something like that, and people in the audience were bursting out laughing because of just how silly it looked.
Yeah.
And that was something that went all the way through the movie. A lot of the characters the characters just aren't believable or realistic in any way, because I really don't think that the filmmakers cared enough to make them believable in any way. Like Gemma, I never believed in this movie, at least, I never believed Alison Williams as this engineer that was able to create the M3GAN, the Model 3 generative android AI and all. Like, I never believed that. It's not because Alison Williams is incapable of playing such a part. It's because just how the character is written in this movie just isn't believable. Yeah. And that was something that, again, we're looking too deep into it, but that's what's so disappointing about the movie, is that they could have done something interesting with it, which is what I think, like, if Leigh Whannell was writing it, or at least had they aspired to reach that kind of a level with it, I think they could have done something really special.
The other thing I thought was really interesting too is only probably a couple of months ago now, you and I got to see Christmas Bloody Christmas in a cinema. I know for people listening, you can check it out on Shudder now, but we got to see it in a cinema, and it's like, that is a schlocky killer robot movie, but there was elements of that movie that I found more believable than M3GAN. Like, I know that sounds really weird, because if you have watched it, it is a schlocky film, but the characters were more believable, and the situation that the characters find themselves in, I felt, was more believable. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I think I actually enjoyed that film more than I did M3GAN because of that reason. So there's something seriously wrong going on when a schlocky film has more going for it than a film that's supposed to be a serious commentary on where AIs are going.
Yeah, I mean, well, something that I think that really worked well in it was the relationship between Katie and Megan and Katie and Gemma. Because just that this little girl, like she's somebody that her parents have been killed, and it's like she's still traumatized by that. She was in the car with them when they died, and instead of forming a bond with Gemma as a new parent, she instead begins forming a bond with this toy, which is just filling that slot because Gemma, as you say, doesn't want to. Yeah. Like she feels like she needs to do it, but she's doing such a pish poor job at being a foster parent that she literally creates a doll to do the job for her.
Yeah.
And like I did really appreciate that. That's something that I thought that was really great. And the Violet McGrath was really great for such a young actress in that part. And those are the parts. That's the stuff that I really liked about this movie, was that relationship between those characters. And I just think that, yeah, I think that a lot more could have been done here, rather than going in the comedic route that they went.
Yeah,
I think that a lot more could have been done that would have taken advantage of the concepts that it was dealing with. I mean, the movie's a hit, and there's going to make sequels. So I guess I'm hoping that in the future they kind of do they try a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because I just think that it was a lot of quite a big missed opportunity with this film.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things I found interesting was that they did go that comedy route, even to the point where they cast Ronnie Cheng in there, who is known as an Australian comedic actor, and he played that up, which of course he's going to do because he's a comedic actor, and I don't blame him for that. I mean, they've cast a comedic actor to play a role. Of course he's going to try and be funny, like, unless you direct them to do otherwise. Like, I just watched I Love My Dad with Patton Oswalt, where Patton Oswalt plays kind of a darker character, but it's obvious that the director has said to him, "Hey, Peyton, look, you're not being a comedian here. This is a dark role," and he could probably pick that up from the screenplay. But with Ronnie Chiang, you kind of get the feeling that they've told him to go over the top, and it's like, if you want this to be a movie that's making a commentary on AIs, probably having that comedic element to it doesn't really work. I mean, the perfect tone for this movie would have been the same as the tone for The Orphan, where you're introducing
a lot darker,
yeah, where you're introducing this character to a family like a family unit in this case, that the audience is supposed to feel for, and putting them in danger. Whereas in this movie, you'll have a scene where it's like, okay, Megan's going a bit off the rail and she just killed someone, and then the next scene will be Ronnie Chiang making jokes like in the workplace, and to me, he didn't become believable in that role, because how could a company where they've already established that the next level of management up are very tough, like as they've said, like a few characters make reference to, why would they employ someone that almost feels like an idiot to be at that next level of management down? Like, it didn't make any sense. And there's also like another storyline that comes in there and then doesn't go anywhere, unless it goes into the sequel, where his assistant is stealing information from the company and selling it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't go anywhere in the end. Like, I was waiting for an after credit sequence where it's like, that information is now with another toy company and they're going to make the toy. But
sorry, yep.
It just didn't feel like it went anywhere.
Yeah, like that, and the way that the social worker character kind of disappears from the movie. That's another, like, there are quite a few subplots like that, which that's what makes me think that there's undoubtedly going to be an extended version of this coming out on home video, because there's so many there's so many elements like that in the movie, which and it's admitted, like, people know that this movie was cut down to get a wider audience. So I really think that there's going to be a lot of stuff in the director's cut of this movie that might actually assist the story a lot more. And yeah, definitely out. What did you think of how I guess the actual doll of M3GAN was presented? Because I did kind of like that it had this uncanny valley vibe the entire movie. Like, it's done in so many different ways. Like, there's CGI at work, there's animatronics at work, there's some parts where it's clearly a person wearing a mask, but then at the same time, like in that same shot, the M3GAN will move in like a completely artificial robotic way that makes it look like it might be an animatronic itself, you know? Like, what did you think of that? Because I thought that was really, I thought that actually really helped just how creepy the doll was for the entire movie.
Yeah, I'm really surprised they didn't get Andy Serkis to do the part, because I thought he was the only actor that was capable. Yeah, it was interesting, because the one thing, like when I was thinking about the design of M3GAN as well, is you've got to remember that even in the film, she's a prototype, so she's not going to look perfect. Like, you would imagine that by the time that doll got to the public and became like a mass-produced doll, that it would look more human. So yeah. I kind of liked that look. The bit where I thought that it made me wonder, though, was how many times in the movie people mistake her for a real child. Like, the next door neighbor thinks that she's a real child. I think at one point, someone on the camp, like, kind of school day thing they go to, thinks that it's a real child. And it's like, you can tell that is not a real child. If you're thinking that's a real child, then you probably should be going to OPSM and getting your eyes checked. So that would kind of, I like the look, because like I said, they do have to go for a prototype kind of look, because that's what she is. But then they're playing it up later like, oh no, I thought it was a real child. That bit of it then kind of didn't play up. But like the other thing I was wondering too about people laughing, because there's one scene in here where M3GAN is quite vicious in what she does, and people laughed, and I was thinking, would people have laughed if that had been Chucky? Like, is it because Chucky looks evil, whereas M3GAN kind of looks like that private schoolgirl who should be going to Hogwarts kind of look? Is that why people found that funny, whereas if it was Chucky doing it, they would have found it terrifying?
Yeah, there's like I say, I think that there's kind of a feeling throughout the entire movie that this is almost a black comedy, or some kind of a lot more of a comedy than a regular, like, horror film.
Yeah.
And so I think, I mean, definitely the screening that we went to, people were laughing all the way through it, whereas, as you say, with a movie like Child's Play, or at least the early, maybe the first 3 or 4 of them, it definitely had a lot more of a darker feel to it. And I think that because they went in such a comedic way with this, because of that, it was really hard for me to take a lot of the things that I am supposed to take seriously.
Yeah.
You know, like, I did actually, like, I thought that there were, I did kind of like little elements of how there's almost like an invisible wall between Gemma and Katie. Like, they have no mother-daughter kind of relationship, you know, and there's stuff like that I liked in it. But then when the film tries to be serious, in a lot of ways, I think it falls flat because of that. Because you can't have a horror scene that feels like something out of a Shaun of the Dead, or like some kind of a comedic death scene, and then and then I'm supposed to care about the relationship between these characters. Like you can't do both.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's what the film tries to do too much of, whereas, like we said before, with Leigh Whannell's films, his has a tone and sticks to it. Like, Upgrade very much had that early Ozploitation kind of feel to it, and it stuck with that all the way through. The Invisible Man, I know people that don't even like horror that love that film, because they say it feels more like a suspense thriller than it does a horror film. So, yeah, I think that is one of the issues with M3GAN, that they didn't really know. It feels like the director didn't know what genre they wanted the film to be, like what tone for it to have. So, yeah, that's always going to be an issue when it comes to a film. But I guess now the big question is, what are you going to give this one out of 5?
I'm going to give it 2 out of 5. I feel like I should give it a 2.5 because I mean, the audience that we saw it with really did enjoy it. But I think a lot of people are going to watch this movie and just forget about it straight away after that. I think it could have been something a lot better than that, and that's so that's why I'm a lot more kind of disappointed in where it went. I'm interested to see what happens when they do an extended version. I'm interested. Again, this movie's a hit, so there's going to be sequels. So I'm interested to see what they do there. But yeah, I just hope that they're a lot more creative in the future than what they were here. So 2 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 3 out of 5. I think it's worth a pass, but yeah, like you said, it's probably not one of those movies that I'm going to go back and watch, which I actually do quite a bit with Blumhouse horror. It's probably one of those films where I won't give it another look until the next one's coming out, and I go back to watch it, like, to get a bit of a refresher before the next one. But it's one of those movies where I think the James Wan magic is starting to fall away a little bit, where once upon a time I'd be raving about his films, but I think it's starting to fall away, and I think probably the reason there is he needs to find a screenwriter that he can work well with, because I think that's the major issue, is that it feels like, I don't know, it feels like he's become Hollywoodized, whereas when he was making films like Saw, that was not what Hollywood were making at the time. So yeah, I think that's going to be a big thing, and hopefully he gets back on track in the future. But that's it for this episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy. Kyle is giving M3GAN, I almost said Annabelle there for some reason, is giving M3GAN 2 out of 5. I'm giving it 3 out of 5. Go along, check it out, make up your own mind and see what you think of M3GAN, but we don't think it lives up to the hype that everybody had for it coming out of the States. I've been Dave G.
And I've been Kyle.
And this has been the Popcorn Conspiracy, and we'll be back very, very soon with another episode.